Okay, welcome everyone. This is the June 21st regular meeting of the North Shore Board of Fire Commissioners, and we'll now come to session. First order of business will be roll call.
Good evening. Commissioner Pratt,
Present?
Commissioner Byers,
Present.
Commissioner Webster,
Present.
Commissioner Woolham,
Present.
Chief Talon,
Here.
Legal Counsel Matt Paxton.
Here.
Commissioner Admin is not attending tonight, and I'm Board Secretary Amy Oakley.
Item number 2, public comments.
There were no advance requests for public comment, but if anyone would like to make a public comment, you're welcome to.
Okay. Seeing no public comment, we'll move on. Item number 3, approval of the agenda. We have one late addition. There's been a request from Chief Talon to add a discussion on aid 157. And I propose that we amend the existing agenda to include that as item 4.9. Any dissent? No problem. Discussion on that. Great. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Motion for approval of the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda with the previously said amendment.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 And aye. Okay. Unanimous. Thank you. All right. Item number 4, board discussion and possible action items. Item 4.1, conversation with local 1760. Is there a member of the union that would like to speak?
I did just text him, so I
All right.
apologize. I saw him earlier. I was going to remind him earlier.
That's okay. If they show up late, we'll make some space for them.
And I'd like to make a comment. Is this an item that we need to keep going on? Because this was mainly
That's a
during
good
our
point.
combination. I think they can always make a point to get on our agenda for future, but I think now that things are smoothing out, I don't know if we need to get that.
Sure. I don't know that we need it for debate and discussion and conflict resolution, but I think it's good to keep an open line of dialogue between the local and the board, and maybe we could just move it to as needed as an ad needed item.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Item 4.2, update on contract for services with Shoreline Fire.
There's a few updates in my activity report, but there was something that I wanted to add from yesterday. The subgroup that's working on the integration, more mostly on the operations side, they got together and made a lot of progress on specifically how to mesh the fire engines together. And there was some give on both sides. Shoreline's going to start carrying a little bit more bulk loads, and we're converting the North Shore rigs, or will be converting them to pre-connected with combo nozzles. So because of trying to keep consistency and familiarity, we're going to be taking Shoreline hose and putting that on and our combo nozzles, and then we'll be taking some of the solid bores that North Shore currently has, and there will be a couple that will be put onto onto the Shoreline rigs, and then the rest will be in storage. They're finalizing. This isn't really out there yet because they just met. They're trying to put it all together onto like one sheet, so that they can message it out. And then, assuming that everybody's there, and they're going to reach out to a couple of the SMEs, a couple more SMEs, and then they'll give it back.
Subject matter.
Sorry, subject matter experts. Sorry. Sorry. Please always call me out on acronyms if I look. I was halfway through my district activity report, and I was like, NUCBA, and you guys are like, I'd be like, what's that? Non-uniform CBA. Anyway, so they're going to reach out to make sure that there's buy-in by everybody, and then if so, within the next week or two, start having the conversion done. It'll be wholesale, one engine at a time, so that there isn't any piecemealing going on. It'll go to Patrick to start making. That's our lead mechanic. To make shouldn't cost much or be all that difficult to do. And then continue with the integration. We're expecting will probably be into early mid-July before there's complete awareness exposure to all the crews and get that comfortability that we're looking for to start integrating. However, I do want to give an update on Telestaff. Telestaff went live 2 days ago, I think. And so now North Shore people are being called in on overtime using Telestaff, which is that's kind of a milestone. There's Trex and Telestaff are still going to go in parallel until July and test to make sure that the environments are both getting the same product at the end. And then we'll completely convert in July to Telestaff as everything. And there's a lot of good training going on with the Battalion 151 as getting up to speed on Telestaff as well. So there's been some good progress there. But now we're really focusing on just getting everybody, exposed and trained up over the next month or so. And again, probably in mid-July or so, by then we should be integrating some of the staff and all that. Although there is a little bit going on here and there right now, even with some overtime. So, but it's very marginal. That's the big stuff.
Chief, the integration of the battalion chiefs, could you elaborate on that just a little bit more?
You mean like the training?
Yeah.
So there's been a couple of opportunities for the battalion chief to actually be up in Shoreline and do some ride along, kind of a ride along situation when we've had an extra one on, and then the biggest piece is actually on the Telestaff and some of those other, soft skills side of things. Tactics and everything, we're all already on the same page. So, and that continues. And they're already, the Battalion 151 is starting to use Telestaff as well in different capacities. It's still on 161 though, to make sure that at the end of the shift that everything's, clean and all that. And like I said, it just started using Telestaff to call for overtime, just like yesterday or the day before.
Telestaff
is
that your program, right?
Yes. So Telestaff, So Telestaff, it's all the unit assignments for all the different units, and even myself. It has everybody, logged in. It does for sick leave, vacation, even vacation picking. It'll automatically call in on overtime. We have benchmarks of 2 weeks out, 2 days out, day of, for automatically calling overtime. It'll call you up and then you punch in the number. I don't even know how to do it because I called in overtime, but it does, it's a very powerful tool, but it's also unbelievably complicated, as well. I can give you guys a quick demo sometime, maybe at the next meeting if you'd really like. But it's and I'm not very good at it. I just know how to put in my hours and stuff and look at what the rosters look like. But and then we use Telestaff to drive a personnel report, which drives payroll. So when we trigger the report, and I don't even know what report it is, but Katie does. It triggers a report, and then she uses that, and then either some of it is manual, but some of it that just goes to ADP to get processed as well. So it is our staffing program, but it also drives our payroll as well.
Does it also integrate up with your ESO and like?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent point. So if it's done correctly and everything, it'll also auto-populate into our RMS, our report managing system. So with ESO, fire reports, et cetera. So that if you're on, 164 and you go on a call, then whoever the units, the personnel that are assigned, it auto-populates in, to the report, which makes it more efficient, streamlined, and more accurate. Typically.
Yes.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Me too.
No, you're coming along with it. No, I'm on this much too, so I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, any other questions for the chief on the integration process? Okay. Item 4.4, our 2020 annual financial report was clean and submitted to the auditor's office. That's good news.
You skipped item 4.3.
Oh, did I? I'm sorry. Oh, geez.
And I'll just update on that because with the other integration things going, we've kind of just let that sit as far as the subcommittee for administrative tasks not covered on original budget. We're still, you sent me a copy of it. I think
Yeah.
what we'll do is try to set up next month once you get.
Sure,
Dawn.
anytime. I did send it to Dawn as well. I mean,
Okay.
she's good.
Okay.
And just to take a look at it and see if there's anything that was kind of glaring that was missing, or if maybe some of the numbers didn't jive with her. So she hasn't given me feedback as yet, but I thought that might be a good tool to bounce it off her too.
So when you get her feedback, send it back to
Sure.
the subcommittee.
Yeah, if there's anything, so definitely.
And, yeah, go ahead and send it again, so Tyler will have it.
Okay.
And I'll have it. So once we get it, we'll keep it in the forefront that way. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So that was item 4.3, and item 4.4 just addressed. Item 4.5, capital reserve purchases. Chief Don?
So two things. Start with the big one. So there's been an issue with the server room and air conditioning from the beginning. It was a design flaw. It's been known for years. The fix was actually to buy a portable AC unit in there and kind of vent it and all this and that. It's not doing a great job. It's not cooling it down, which is causing premature failures. It's wear and tear on the servers and the battery backup and so forth. and the water has to be dumped every day. And if it doesn't, it overflows and floods. So, and again, it's not, even if it was doing its job, it's probably not a great long-term fix, but it's really not doing its job. So, and Zeb identified this, I think at least 2 or 3 chiefs ago, too. So this has not been it's not new, but it's been one that's been, we'll deal with that later. We'll deal with that later. Well, we have a premature failure of batteries, which is the second ask, which is the smaller one. But today we got a quote on what it's going to take to basically fix it, which and Zeb's been working with it's with PSR Mechanical, and it's $17,557 is the quote. But the good news on this though is that there's a couple of different routes we could go. One of them is to put its own little dedicated unit outside in the flower box and and have that run. But the problem with that is that if you do that, then if it fails, immediately the heat will rise and you'll have some failures. But so this one's there's gonna be basically it'll be tied together and it'll have some backup. So if one fails, there's gonna be some other backup. But it's expensive, but it's also needed. The second piece of this is the batteries that were bought for the server backup were not adequately sized and combined with the heat. There's 2 backups and we've already had one failure. They both were bought at the same time and we'll already have one failure. And so Zeb would like to buy 2 battery backups that are properly sized. As a reminder, because Zeb reminded me, it's not just internet, it's phones, it's the security cameras, it's the doors, it's pretty much everything is now tied through the servers and so forth. So and that's $9,600. So I already told Zeb to start the purchase with the batteries because it's really not much. It's not really an option. There are a couple of different ways we can go about with the AC fix. My recommendation is to go with the one that Zeb and the consulting company or the contracting company.
Could you send a copy of that to me?
It's just one copy, sorry, but I'll email it to you all. So
is that with that one? Is that's like they're putting venting in as well as putting it?
yeah, I don't know all the particulars.
That's what I want.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So I believe what it is that it's going to tie into the existing system, but also there will be a unit out it'll be aesthetically protected in the flower box out here. So it'll be the primary with the backup being our regular system. So the regular system will be there in case that unit fails. I think it is, we can save a little bit of money. He didn't give me the numbers of just having that unit be the sole source to the server unit, room. But the problem is then if it fails, there's nothing. So that's the concern. This is kind of late breaking. It was actually earlier today. It was late yesterday, earlier today that Zeb was working on it. He met with them late yesterday. I got the quote earlier today. It's one of the reasons why I'm not all that versed on it. Again, but that's Zeb's recommendation and I support it. But I can give you the other prices if you'd like to see those as well. If he's got, I don't know if he's got.
3 bids on something like this?
Well, it's not over 20, so I mean, we can. I think he did reach out though to multiple companies to see if, and typical right now, especially, you're lucky to get one person to show up and actually give you a quote, but I can find out.
Yeah, Chief, can we just make sure that we've at least reached out to other companies to see, because that, if it's, all in the ballpark, that's great, but if some price is wildly different, then we want to know that.
Okay.
And these backup batteries, were those a recent purchase or was that?
They were purchased 1 year ago, 1 or 2 years ago, I can't remember.
Okay.
But they should have a 4 or 5 year life cycle. But they're, one of the things is that they're undersized, so they're tapped hard when they're, and then with the heat, they just premature failure.
And again, my understanding is if the batteries have already, you're in the process of.
I already authorized the purchase of the batteries, because if we lose the second battery, we have no backup.
What is the timeline in getting those?
Good question. That's, I haven't got that. I authorized that on, I think that was yesterday as well. I'll get a timeline on the batteries too.
Any other questions?
So so hold off on the AC until I can get you the confirmation on the quotes and the prices.
Yeah, I just want to guarantee that we've at least reached out to multiple
No, it's
companies.
fine.
If we can't get
I
it,
guess
we can't
Zeb
get it.
did.
Yeah.
And well, I guess if Zeb did reach out to get 3 different prices and this is only one, unless you guys have issues with it, I'll go with it, but I'll let you guys know first.
I just
Have some
I want
consensus.
to read what their proposal is.
Well, it's right up here. So,
Yeah.
I'll get back to you by
and
then.
I will send it to the rest of the board as well.
Thanks, Chief. Okay, item 4.6, the King County Interfund Transfer Agreement.
So I sent that to you right before the last board meeting, just, so for you guys to take a look at, see if there's any questions or comments. Both has looked at it, Don's looked at it. I didn't hear back anything. So unless there's issues with it, I was gonna go ahead and, process it.
That's great.
All right, thank you.
All right. 4.7, nonprofit tax exempt properties data collection request. So we got this request kind of late, just to update folks, right before our last meeting, days before our last meeting. I reached out to Chief Cowan. He said that his organization was going to be involved, that it wasn't a heavy lift, but then upon further review, it is quite a heavy lift. The data that they're asking for is quite extensive. And that's kind of, the last I heard was that update that the lift is heavy. You were going to look into seeing if we even had the data, if it was readily available.
Well, we have the data, but you're exactly right. Initially, it was 1 year and just give us a total AV of those King County Housing Authority properties. I got that kind of informally from Mark Thompson, this a month and a half ago-ish. And so I provided that data through our board to him. Subsequently, we got a request for a lot more data and over, I think it's 5 years. So we have, and we use the same consultant at Shoreline and North Shore for the fire benefit charge, Neil Blindheim. he's a guru, with this stuff. And so I'm pretty sure that we have all the data, and in fact, he even responded that he thinks that we do have all the data. It's just a matter of gleaning it and putting it into the format that Mark wants it in. So I kicked this to Neil to take a look at and then get back to me. He hasn't gotten back to me. I think because he realizes that, because at first he was like, oh yeah, I could, and it's same thing. He was taking a bigger look at this and, because, they're asking for details on the actual properties themselves and so forth, and not just AV or total AV or anything. So I'm going to follow up with him again this week and find out where we're at with this, because I think Mark had a date of like end of this week or early next week. I think I want to say the 26th off the top of my head or something like that, or 29th. So I'm going to find out if it's doable.
Well, fill me in on what the need, or, I mean, they're asking for this information. Is this something that we're required to fulfill, or is this just a ask to help them get some information?
It's an ask, it's not required. It is self-serving in a way though too, because I believe I know where Mark's going with this, because he and I've even had conversations, and I've even been down in Olympia testifying about the impacts of more exempt properties and the weight on, the subsidizing basically that the rest of our taxpayers pay. We either get the loss of revenue or the weight of that lost revenue gets dispersed, amongst the rest of the taxpayers. So I believe his project is one that, again, that he and I have talked about for quite a few years now, which is to bring attention to the legislature, the impacts of having tax exempt properties and or housing authority properties. Obviously, homelessness is a big problem, crisis. And so there, more and more cities are trying to incentivize, more affordable housing or low income housing and so forth, or offering tax incentives by giving tax deferrals. Shoreline's done that. And I've been trying to raise the awareness, for many years that there's an impact. I think that this is what this ask is to start quantifying that for all the departments in King County. Well, I think he's even going, my suggestion through Kim Fisher, who was working on this from the Shoreline angle, was to take a look at this as more of even a broader, look than even King County. But I know he's focusing on King County to find out what all the different departments, what the impacts are. I don't know how, I have no idea actually how much of an impact it is for North Shore. I know, because I looked at it about 4 or 5 years ago, that at Shoreline, we have a pretty high percentage of tax exempt and housing authority properties. Same with Burien. No surprise, immediately north and south of Seattle, that's where a lot of these properties are. We're second to Burien in percentage of overall AV, but we actually, Shoreline, again, 5 years ago at least, Shoreline had a higher amount of AV than I could find, in my quick little internet search of all the departments in King County. Wasn't quite the percentage of Burien, because Burien is much smaller AV, but we had quite a high one. So that's why I felt I was empowered to try and speak in Olympia about this. So I believe that that's the project that he's working on. Okay.
So in the.
It's not a requirement though. It's,
Fire Commissioner Association, I was on that meeting last
Oh,
week or the week
okay.
before.
You probably know more than
And
I do.
there's a lot of kickback from the different fire departments that they're not asking for specific enough information that can be easily accessed. And so there's a lot of back and forth at this point on exactly what information they're looking for and exactly what they want the departments to look into for them. Because what they're asking is pretty huge in general. And a lot of departments don't have the manpower, the time, the money to pay somebody to get all that information. So
we are blessed or fortunate in that, because we have a fire benefit charge, we already have a database that's exportable into Excel. It's an Access database that's exportable into Excel, so that we can actually glean some of that. Some departments don't, if they don't have a fire benefit charge, they don't have that database even. They'd have to get it from the county, or I guess from the county. I don't even know how you do it.
So my understanding is that this giving tax exempt properties, what they're trying to do is make low income housing, but what you're saying is that it's impacting our fire departments because we're not getting any revenue for it. But in the long run, isn't that just spreading the cost of housing these people to all the taxpayers? So
It is.
It can be a fair way of doing it. I don't know if it is, but
Yeah.
I can understand where that comes in.
The,
But where you're saying is that like Shoreline and Berrien have a bigger percentage, so there are impacts that aren't being spread out of all King County yet.
I think the issue is that because they don't contribute tax money to the fire departments, they are call centers, right? So you're
Yes.
getting a lot of EMS calls to these locations, a lot of fire alarm calls to these locations. So they're utilizing the service and not paying for it at all.
Right.
And my guess is that Commissioner Thompson is probably collecting this information with the hopes of getting the state to kick in to offset some of those costs.
I'm not sure if he's looking for support as much as, awareness for future legislation and so forth. The reason why I was down in Olympia talking about this was because there was, as you may recall, there was a legislature that allowed for exemption from fire benefit charge as well. The fire benefit charge was not exempt. Let me back up. Housing authorities were not exempt from paying the fire benefit charge until this legislature went through about, I want to say it's about 3 or 4 years ago now. And 5 years ago, when I fought it the first year and it got delayed for 1 year, and then it got enough support for the next year and went through. And at the time it was, for me, it was kind of almost like a perfect storm, if you will, because the example I used was that the King County Housing Authority purchased Ballinger Apartments. I may have mentioned this before, I'm not sure, which as of like a few years ago was $120-something million. It's an apartment complex off of 205th, up there by the Nile golf course,
Yeah.
and they bought the whole complex. And they're not even planning, they're looking at like a 20-year phase-in affordable housing plan. So they immediately became tax exempt, but the property is not being used for affordable housing.
Mhm.
But because it's under the auspices of a housing authority, then it became tax exempt. Commissioner Thompson is also going after other tax exempt properties. This is going to be a bit of a battle probably too. He's asking for information on churches and other tax exempt properties, and who have been tax exempt for a long time. And that's where this becomes a much bigger ask too, by the way, because you can do a search pretty easily for King County Housing Authority or KCHA or whatever, but going deeper into where he wants to go, it's a much bigger ask. So my frustration is that they continue to pass legislation, and please don't get me wrong, I'm for affordable housing, I'm for helping support those in need and all that, but at the same time, needs to be a recognition of the impacts when you take these tax revenues out of the system and the weight that gets pushed onto the rest of the taxpayers, and they do it sometimes without even thinking about it. And you're absolutely right. Some of these places are, because of their people in greater need, they do become call centers. And at one time, I even did a study of comparable between, a similar type of multifamily, structure or place, apartment building, and it was like 6 times the amount, sometimes as high as 10 times, the same amount. And so not only are we not getting revenues from it, but there are also higher demands for services. And it's a real easy thing for the cities to pass this legislation because it's popular. It looks good, and they defer the taxes, sometimes permanently, but a lot of times for 10 years or so. And so I was just trying to bring awareness up so that they wouldn't just, pass these things without understanding what the impacts are. And So I think this is a much bigger project because he's now looking at all sorts of different taxes.
And it's that legislation passing with people not ever addressing
Right.
the impacts of that. And
Right.
so my understanding is that's also what, you can pass legislation and we can all agree with it, but you also need to look at the bigger picture as far as taking money away from, the fire department or the police department or,
Right.
whatever, yeah.
And again, some departments don't have any of these. Well, every department has some kind of tax exempt, but housing authority properties, my previous department, in Maple Valley, we didn't have one. We didn't have a single. But you're talking about Southeast King County. I mean, the closer you get to, Seattle or Bellevue or some of the, more urbanized areas, the more likely you're gonna have these. So it is disproportionate, to, on the burden. So,
Yeah.
Just my opinion.
Thank you.
I guess to wrap this up, I am gonna work with him and try and see if we can't come up with something to meet, what Commissioner Thompson's looking for. I just don't know.
Even if we can just,
Something.
halfway, right, or just give him the information that we have that's available.
You've had her extend the deadline.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Item 4.8, our policy discussion on policy 1410, or our discussion on policy 1410. And Commissioner Warren to take the lead on this one.
So I was asked to look at the parliamentary procedures after we had our Robert's Rules meeting. And there were some changes suggested for us to look at. And all of them happen to be on page 3. So what I did is, on mine it was highlighted, but this looks like it's got gray on it. So these are the wording changes that I wanted to present to the board and then have a chance to have everybody talk about it if they agreed or not. So under number 2, the appeal, the suggested change was that it could be, any decision by the chair could be appealed. And the change is here, by a single member in which the board will decide the matter by majority vote. I'm trying to find.
I think it said something like, previously it said something like by a majority of the board. Other than
So it previously said any decision by the chair may be appealed by a majority vote of the board.
Find my place here, excuse me. There we go.
Right, so I think that the suggested change there from a majority of the board to a majority vote is that there's gonna be times where we have a quorum where it
Yes,
might be 2 of 3 or 3 of 4 rather than the 3 of the 5.
right.
Yeah.
So then the next change that was suggested is under number 5, the vote. So the way it's worded now is if the change is announced before the chair announces the result of the vote. And her suggestion was if the change is announced before the chair announces the results of the prevailing side.
Okay.
That's good.
The other thing she wanted us to add, because we did not have this in here, is that we can change the agenda at any time by either adding or taking things away, and we didn't have that, so we weren't able to change the agenda as we were working through something. There was nothing in there about that. So she wanted us to be able to add something in to a discussion without having to wait until the next meeting.
Would that have to be voted on, or would that just be a discussion?
I think it's that we can add it into the agenda to discuss it.
I'm a little confused on that one. We have that, or maybe we just did that as a matter of kind of practice rather than having that actually in the.
Right. And so the last thing is, oh, I've got that number wrong. Number 7 should be, we have nothing in there about the Zoom meetings. And so what she suggested we put in with that is the chat function on our Zoom meetings will be turned on only when the board is in public session. So that it's, if we're in a, my mind just went blank.
Executive session.
Thank you. If we're in executive session, there isn't conversation going on the side bar while we're not able to address anything. So those were the suggested changes.
Mr. Paxton, did you have an opportunity to review these suggested policy changes? Do you have any input for us?
I did. I didn't have any input. I thought all of those were appropriate, certainly well within the laws.
I make a motion that we accept these changes.
If I'm not mistaken, Matt, if we're gonna change a policy, we have to have an initial reading, right? And then we can vote at our next meeting, or can we have a motion to vote tonight?
I believe that your policies require a second opportunity to have a discussion about this.
So keep it on the agenda and we'll
Yeah.
vote on it next time.
But we do have an opportunity for discussion if you object to any of these suggested changes or
Or
revision
if you
of
want
language.
different wording or, yeah.
Okay. Good so far. Thank you.
Commissioner Byers?
Yeah, I'm wondering with Zoom being a new thing and a new way that we operate, if there needs to be any more language in there, because I don't know what our policy actually says for any of this stuff. So this is a whole new thing, and I think we should revisit something and see if we need to add anything policies or how we operate with Zoom. Or maybe we don't need to at all. It works out fine. It's the one thing that stands out. There's a question in my head.
Did you do any research on that as far as Zoom meetings, what other boards are doing, if we need to add any language on Zoom?
I did not, but I'm happy to do that.
Okay. Good point.
You guys done anything?
I think it's a good point to consider. You know, in these meetings like they are now, it's not a big deal at all, but if we had a contentious issue or something like that, and we had to like somehow regulate, you know, I think that we're in a brave new world. You know, so it might be good to have a little bit of details, you know, surrounding Zoom and all that. We have not done anything at Shoreline. But I've had 2 meetings where it was a bit contentious on the vaccine mandate, and we had to be very specific with everybody of like, you know, and of muting everybody, you know, until they were called upon, and then unmuting them. Amy's actually, you know, pretty stellar at this. You know, it was newer to us, you know, to Beatrice, my executive assistant. So it was. I think there probably is some details that we can add into it.
So let's do this. Let's keep this as is, and so this will be our initial public reading, and get this pushed out for any comment, and then we can make a decision at our next meeting. Keep on our radar pursuing and investigating whether or not we need to have a more robust policy on Zoom.
I would suggest that we talk to the lady that did our presentation. I'm sure she's got some input on Zoom.
Okay. And then my only other thought that came to mind, because I've heard about the contentious meetings in Shoreline, is that do we want something in there that states you need to be a citizen of Lake Forest Park and Kenmore to be able to speak? Because it's really, that's who is affected by our decisions. So it was just a thought. I know on other meetings, we've had people that weren't from, you know, here. So it's like, what's the impact to you and why, I guess, why is that person speaking when they don't work here and they don't live here? I don't know. It was just a thought I wanted to throw out there.
That would be, what's your thoughts on that?
Was that to me?
Yes, you, Matt.
I have legal concerns about that. We can talk offline, but there's new requirements for allowing public comment at general meetings, and putting a condition of of residency or something like that would probably not comply with the new law.
Yeah. Okay. And I was gonna say,
I kind
I agree.
Okay.
One suggestion I would have on the Zoom thing is I would not get too far into the weeds on this.
Yeah.
I just keep it at a higher level of like a couple of the bullet points that you want
Yeah.
or that you need to have.
Okay.
Because then you have a little bit more latitude to make decisions more on the fly and say, for this meeting, for this special occasion, whatever it is.
Okay.
So that would just be my suggestion. But
Okay.
I go to the experts, not me.
Okay.
I'm not.
Okay. Thank you for your work on that, Commissioner
Mhm.
Nolan.
You're welcome.
Okay, item 4.9, our added item, discussion on aid 157.
Right, so as you all know, in the ILA, one of the things that we identified is that we wanted to do was to improve the levels of service to the citizens of Lake Forest Park and Kenmore with a peak hour aid cart, but even more so was doing transports with continuity of care, higher level of care, more efficient transports, et cetera. Since we put that together in a proposal, we've had some staffing challenges. And so I want to come to you and present with a few different ideas and thoughts and get your feedback on where to go. I absolutely want to live up to my promise of getting that 8-car in service and being ready to do transports on July 1st. And if that's the direction we go, then that's the direction we go. But I also want to caution you with some of the impacts that both departments are feeling right now. I had the numbers run earlier today on, and let me back up and say, for me, one of the benchmarks I use for proper staffing is how much mandatory overtimes we have to call in. Overtime is a necessity, I believe, a necessity of every staffing model, because we would be completely overstaffed most of the time if we were to try and eliminate overtime. So there's a good balance of where overtime should be. But when we're forcing people to stay, and all that, I look at that as not in balance. And the impact is, especially over the last couple of years, with everything else going on with the pandemic and the vaccine clinics and staffing shortages or whatever, is that we've had a lot of wear and tear on our people, from an overtime standpoint, and even a mandatory standpoint. And overtime can be really good for the pocketbook, but at some point it beats you down. So what we've done so far this month, is that we've had 23 mandatories so far, which is actually, believe it or not, down. That's a better number than what it's been this month so far. So in 21 days, we've had 23 mandatories.
Chief,
However,
is that just fire personnel or is that also medics?
However, 4 of those are ALS, and then 10 are North Shore and 9 are Shoreline. So so take the ALS out, we're really at 19. So almost 1 per day, suppression wise. And that is actually pretty darn good compared to what it has been. But we're also going into our heavier vacation months too. The positive side is that we have 11 people hitting the street here in a week and a half. That will be coming out of the academy, plus our 2 laterals that we hired. So we'll have 11 hitting the streets. And by the way, I got late as I was driving here. They all passed their EMT.
Yay.
So I was pretty excited about that, to be honest. So it looks like they're all going to graduate. They're all going to start their week and a half of onboarding, and so they'll be hitting the street. That's almost 3 per shift. So that's good. But again, we've had a lot of mandatories. Everybody is fatigued. And so, this will not eliminate the mandatories, but it should get us back to hopefully, maybe not eliminate, but get down to, maybe just a few, mandatories and so forth. I wanted to give you some backstory on this just because, we're also, if we're bringing 3 people on, almost 3 people on per shift, but then we're also putting 2 more into a peak hour 8-car, at least during the day, that isn't giving the relief that I think we were all hoping for with with the rest of regular staffing. Part of this is that we were supposed to be in a better position, but we had a handful of people that didn't make it through the academies, whether it was the fire or the EMT side. And so we're not graduating as many people as we thought we were going to. I think we ended up separating with 4 or 5. So we were supposed to be around 15 is what we were supposed to be with the 2 laterals, and that just didn't happen. So we have a few options. One more thing. We have to be a little bit careful in being consistent with our approach for transports across the entire organization. We cannot do something different in Shoreline and something different in North Shore unless we're very purposeful and deliberate, and I would need a legal, opinion on it as well. So we are legally held to a consistent approach, and it's important that we follow that as much as we possibly can, because that we can get sideways and break the law, and that impacts our ability to collect on GMT or Medicaid.
So those are GMT regulations. Right?
Well, it's actually even more than just GMT. It affects, it's a law. So it could affect other things too. So we have to be very careful with that. Now, with that said, we're still in the process of training and getting everything ready to go with transports. And we could still make it, by July 1st. We could make it, but it would be, I think it would be more advantageous for us to wait and make sure we're doing it properly, and so forth. But I have a few options to take a look at. So we could delay, starting the transports. I believe that we, as I've mentioned before, that if we're going to be doing transports, that we should probably have aid 157 up and running to help us so that we're not taking aid 151 out of service to do a transport. Because I see that as, that'd be a decreased level of service, for here. It does happen even now. I mean, it's not like it doesn't happen, but it doesn't happen a lot. We are averaging this year so far about 3 transports per shift, whereas last year it was 4.16. So historically it's been a little bit higher, and that we may catch up with that during the summer months too, because typically we've got more aid calls and stuff going on. So it's very possible that we will catch up on from 3 and push back up to 4.
That's here in North Shore.
Yes, just North Shore. So so it's and that's not a lot. That's not a lot of transports per shift. But one of the problems that we're also having, which is it's a secondary issue, but it definitely affects us, is wall time. Right now, it's ridiculous. Some of the hospitals we've had upwards of even a 3-hour delay in getting a patient out of an 8 car into a hospital. It's to the point I've tasked Division Chief Woolham about 3 or 4 weeks ago with exploring this. He's working with Dr. Ray, Dr. Sayer, the hospitals, trying to make changes. The problem the hospitals are having is that, and I'm digressing, but it has an impact, is that we can't unload them into the ER because the ER is full. ER can't unload them up to the upstairs because there isn't beds available. Those beds aren't available because nursing homes have gone out of under, and so now there's no place to transfer the patients that need to get out of the hospital into assisted or nursing or rehab or whatever it is. And so it's like almost like a domino effect, and so my point was that I reached the breaking point, like I said, about 3 weeks, a month ago, and I was okay with us going through the pandemic and all of us trying to figure out how to make it all work. But now I'm to the point of like, you cannot have an 8 car sitting there with the patient. It's not good for the patient. It's absolutely terrible for us, when we're trying to get our rigs back in service and so forth. And so I said, let's start billing the hospitals. They're not listening to anything else. Maybe they'll start listening if they have to pay. I don't know what authority I have to do this, but anyway, so that's what I have. It
sounded good though.
That's what I have Todd looking into. But so I say that because in a typical transports, you're looking at, an hour and 15 to an hour and a half total time, depending on which hospital you're going to. There, unloading back, getting your rig back in service. somewhere in that neighborhood. So if you're talking 3 or 4 calls, you're talking, what's that, 4 to 6 hours, somewhere in that neighborhood. Not a huge draw, but of course, then again, you've got your bigger days of 5 or 6 transports where you may not see that 8 car back, most of the day. And then you've got days that there's none and the 8 cars sitting around all the time. So I'm trying to give you a sense of like what this looks like on the impacts of level of service, because we could do transports with the 8151 and then bring potentially either decrease the level of service or the level of units that are in service, which I'm not excited about. We could even bring a shoreline 8 car in to backfill and all that, but the time it takes to get down here and all that, and then that decreases the level of service in shoreline too. So we could do that. We can upstaff 8157 during the day with overtime. The reimbursements we would get from doing transports would probably cover the overtime that we would spend, and I'm just guesstimating, and all that. It would probably cover most, if not all, of the expense of the overtime for staffing that unit. So we could do that. And then the other option would be to delay. So those are really the 3 options.
So your delay is 30 days?
Well, so one of the things that I would really like to do is and the problem that we have is that this doesn't get better for us until the end of the year. So I would not want to delay that long. I would like to, first of all, we have to delay. I don't know, we can still make July 1st work, so I can make it work. We have not trained everybody up yet on doing transports. So, I mean, so there could be some delay there. We don't have to force it. We could wait a little bit longer. I think we have some good defendability of just saying, we're in day 21 of this transition. We are still integrating crews. We're still integrating, our apparatus. We could delay, to August 1st or September 1st. I do not want to go beyond that because it would be nice, because we are getting into heavier vacation months, of being able to wait. And when we know our staffing levels are going to be, at the minimums, through the July, from now through the end of August, we'll be looking at, maximum vacation time and minimum staffing levels and stuff like that. So if we could bring our people out of the academy, put them on shift, give our staff a couple of months of break, of not, I think that would be great. But it's not what I promised you, and so I want to make sure that I promised you July 1st.
So Chief, I tracked with you on 2 options. One was to delay.
Right.
The second was to just upstaff and cover it with
right. Or have 8151 do it.
Or have 8151. Okay.
And 8151 again, that would be decreasing the amount of services that are down here, and that's against what I wanted. So I'm not really excited about that, especially with the wall times we have. That doesn't seem to be in the vision of what I promised or in what I proposed in the ILA. So I'm not really excited about that. So either, but I am trying to present all the 3 different options that are available to us. So we could either staff up on July 1st and know that we will have some overtime, some overtime costs there. What I would, if we are going to do that, my recommendation is that we would not mandatory for 8157. If people sign up on overtime, fine. If we have to mandatory 8157, then we would round it out for that day.
What do you think about, I mean, I'd like to see it get in place as soon as we can.
Okay.
But I know July and August are busy months, but even I'd like to see it get in place in August. I think I'll have 30 days, but that would give you training staff, all that.
That would give us extra time to make sure everybody's trained up.
And give it a chance. I mean,
I definitely don't want to go past September, but even August would give us a month.
I think too, Chief, that would give you an opportunity, right, to go to the local and say, is there a collaborative solution? This is what we need to do. We need to get this 8 car in service as soon as possible. Here are the staffing challenges we're facing and I like the approach of staffing with overtime, but not mandatory firefighters into that position, right? Have some type of like bid selection process where they pick up those overtime shifts. Sometimes guys like that because, you know, you find out, I know
Right.
that on this date, I'm gonna be working a 12-hour. Maybe there's an incentive to take it, it moves them on the mandatory list, or I don't want to do your job, but just like be creative
Right.
to try to get 157 in service as soon as possible.
I could offer up, let me back up too and say that I've changed my staffing levels at Shoreline. I had a 4-person engine company at 64 to provide some relief of people being on the ACARS and stuff like that. I eliminated that likely until the end of the year, when we are going to be at our staffing level. At the end of the year, we will theoretically be at our target of 112 suppression assigned, you know, that's our target right now. Once we hit that target and we see how things are actually in reality working, that's been our computer model. Then we'll determine if that's the right number or not. But the good news is that by the end of this year, we should be at our target. So we just have to get through the next 6 months or so. So I did meet with them this morning. We had an LMC this morning, and I did tell them the options I just briefed you on. We could offer up some incentives, just thinking about it, and basically have them get overtime without affecting their bucket list. And their bucket list is basically hours that go against them, so they're on a seniority list. When you're at the top, you get the option of the overtime. And as you take 24 hours, say you take 24 hours of overtime, it drops you down 24 hours, maybe to the bottom even, but it drops you down in whatever that range. Maybe you don't get hours against you, or something like that. The issue though too is that we're in a situation where it'll be really interesting to see how these 11 come out and how it affects the mandatories that are going on. It may provide enough relief, but our staffing levels actually are more affected by PFML, paid family medical leave, and disability right now more than anything else. I'm down one firefighter from October and 1 medic. That's from COVID, or from the vaccine mandate. That's what I've lost. But I've had some people that I've moved into permanent accommodated positions in the fire marshal's office, and I've had a couple of people that have retired early and stuff like that. So it's not the true loss, but it is, because people that was where the contentious meetings came from. Oh, you're losing all these people. I'm like, no, I've actually lost 1 firefighter and 1 medic, to the vaccine mandate. So that's not what's affecting us. It's from a staffing level crisis. It's PFML, it's disability. That's what's hurt. Well, and frankly, that we didn't have as many people pass the academy as we should have.
So my suggestion would be do this through August with the brownouts and no mandatory. And then by August, I think it should be up to speed 100%. Would be kind of my suggestion. In August, if we can get volunteers for it, we do it, we train, and then September 1st, it's official.
Right.
It's up and running.
I think that's a great compromise. That buys us another month of getting everybody trained up and getting all the paperwork, established at systems design, which I think that's in process right now. Again, I could make July 1st work, because that's what I promised you, and I can make that work. But I'm just asking. I think even a month, as you guys have suggested, would be nice for our personnel to not, have to, get beat up, and maybe then they'll be excited to get overtime again.
Right.
I think that August 1st will be good, because you got training for another month.
Yeah. And again, I think that's easily defendable from a legal standpoint, because we do have a legal obligation to make sure that as soon as we can, get up to speed and all that. And another month would be, again, easily defendable because we need it.
Okay.
So am I hearing you correctly? We go August 1st with transporting and upstaffing of 157? Okay. Thank you. And thank you for giving me a month. What's it? You want the overtime?
No, I think it'd be awesome if we could start transporting in July.
Okay.
But also,
I
isn't gonna hurt anything.
I can make it work. It's just I'll on the priority list, my highest priority concern right now is the beating up of our personnel. It's not the financial and all that. And yes, I want to increase our level of service and provide a better transport and all that. But AMR's, pretty good too. And we're still going to be doing some transports, and just buying another month, I think it would really help our staff.
And then so when we start in August, would we have?
Yeah,
the
but in
option
process,
where
it'll
we
be a
could
while.
control it for 57?
So that'd be what I would suggest is that we bring, we fill it with overtime, and maybe in the meantime, that buys me another month of getting a little bit more creative with the union too about how can we, what do you feel about not having bucket hours or half the bucket hours or whatever, that gives me a little bit of time, and then we do, we run it, and we can even see how it's going too, and then regroup in August and say, yeah, we're good to go, or we need another month, or whatever it is, of not forcing, and doing the brownouts. But my suggestion would be, at least for August, to go overtime, but not mandatory. And if it's mandatory, then we brown it out.
I guess it's still transport.
We'd still have to do the transports.
And I think it's fine too, because even if it's 6 hours.
And what that means is that we'll have 8 cars coming down from Shoreline to backfill.
Right.
So
Chief, let's
which will be, by the way, a motivator for them to fill the overtime positions too.
let's have August 1 as the drop dead date. I'd encourage you to go back and talk with your organization and see if you can't figure out some creative solutions and report back to us at the next.
Thank you again for your flexibility and allowing us, again, because this isn't what I told you I was going to do.
So that August 1 is 8151 transporting, 8157 transporting.
Yep. It depending on where the origin of the call is, and then likely, again, this is an operations decision for Mark, and Todd to make, but I would expect that if 8151 doesn't transport, the 157 will move over here to a higher demand area.
Right.
And we get coverage from 8163 coming down the hill to Lake Forest Park too, so that would help us with better coverage. So,
I would like follow up on the wall time too, because that was also
Yeah,
brought
this
up at the King County Commissioners. It's a problem everywhere,
it is.
and it's getting to be quite a challenge, so.
So
One of the big
wall
issues-
time is wait at the hospital.
Sorry.
I don't know.
Sorry.
I picked up.
There's a big board.
I'd be done with
We listed on there.
It's 2x4, right alongside that. It is an issue everywhere. It's a bigger issue from what I'm hearing, at least, especially up in the north end. Evergreen, Northwest, Swedish Edmonds, even Overlake a little bit, but it's for some reason, we're getting hit harder, it seems.
Yeah.
And so it is definitely on the county. I brought it up with the county EMS, county, Medic One, Dr. Sayer, Dr. Ray, Dr. McCoy. This is like, when it comes to EMS, it's my number one issue that I have going on right now. And it's got to get fixed, because this is just ridiculous. And it's not good for the patient, especially if you're on a backboard or something. I can't imagine. Part of our problem here in King County too is that you can't divert. So, so let's say, Evergreen is backed up and it's a 2-hour, wall time. You get there, once you get there and checked in the past, this is one good thing. In the past, they said, you're checked in, you're in our system, you can't leave, kind of thing. Now they are allowed. So you want to talk about irate, people have been like, we're signing, and they're leaving, people are leaving, as long as the patient requests it. This is not a decision, this is not our decision, it is a patient decision. And so what our personnel have been getting in the habit of, if they know, let's say Evergreen, I pick on Evergreen, but it's not Evergreen, it's everybody. If Evergreen is on that delay, before they leave the house to go to Evergreen, they say, "Are you sure you want to go to Evergreen? Because you might be waiting for a couple hours. How about Overlake, or how about Northwest, or wherever?"
Okay.
And so they are trying to help manage it from that level.
Mhm.
But the hospital, and I think it's a poor policy, is that the hospitals can't divert. So like if one hospital's getting beat up, they can't say, we're closed, we're done, divert. They can't do that. And so the theory behind it is that if one's getting overloaded, they're all getting overloaded, but that's not the reality. There are hospitals that are doing better than others, and I don't understand why we don't get to do it, but that's a King County policy.
Okay.
I'll keep this on my radar.
Got the direction you need, chief?
Yep.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right, item number 5, board resolutions, there are none. Item number 6, our consent agenda. Entertain a motion to approve the consent
I
agenda.
make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And it is unanimous. Thank you. Reports, fire chief's report.
Any questions or anything on it? You guys want to know? Did I use any acronyms?
No, actually,
I went back and expanded on some of them.
it was a good report.
Any late breaking news or anything you don't want to elaborate on?
Had a long LMC today, but it was good.
LMC.
Sorry,
Labor
Labor Management Committee.
I just said-
No, I didn't, not anything I think that isn't in there.
All right. Any commissioner report? Mr. Paxton, legal counsel?
I have nothing to report today.
Thank you. Okay, upcoming board agenda items. One thing to note, we transitioning our discussion with the local to an as-needed agenda item. Anything else that,
I have an item I was thinking about. Now that got our contract for services underway, do we need to have 2 meetings a month? Now I'd like to have a discussion for that.
okay, all right.
I mean, yeah, how do you feel about that?
I would like to drop to 1 meeting a month.
And
We might be there. I'm not sure yet.
it's a discussion, so
I think a discussion is absolutely a great starting point, and maybe we said, and maybe we can even try it every other month. I don't know, we can figure something out, but I would like to get us to 1. That would be nice.
Put that on our agenda for next meeting.
Still a lot of things kind of.
Well, and maybe we go through 2 a month until September when the aid's up and running 100%, and then I feel like most of the big.
it would be a change of
Maybe.
policy, so we'd have to discuss it and then present it and then.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah, it might take enough time to get through.
Yeah.
Let's save our discussion for next meeting.
Okay.
Okay, any other items you'd like to see at our next meeting?
There'll be the approval of policy 1410.
Correct, thank you, Amy.
And that next meeting is the day after 4th of July, so hopefully everybody's back.
Yeah,
Before we've had to
So
cancel.
I'll be coming back on that Tuesday.
A lot of people,
I will be coming back on that Tuesday.
yeah, so we
So I will be
may,
here. I can be here.
that would be a good discussion right now is, do we want to
postpone that,
postpone that meeting until either later in the week or put it for the next meeting in the month?
Are you all around though?
I'll be here. I'm just gonna be traveling back from San Juan's on that Tuesday.
I'm not certain where I'm going to be, maybe in Palm Springs.
I'll be
But I can
maybe
do
with
Zoom.
Zoom.
Yeah, we could do
That's what I
Zoom.
was thinking too,
But-
okay.
It's still, that's true. With Zoom, we have the opportunity to, as long as we're not traveling.
yeah, let's put that discussion on the 19th when we're more likely to have more commissioners here in person.
About the one single meeting, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we'll keep our July 5th meeting acknowledging that most commissioners will probably be zooming in. Should be a short commitment. We can keep the agenda items
So
short.
can we just make that a Zoom meeting so Amy doesn't have to come in on the 5th?
I think now we're required to be in person.
Oh.
Are we required to have at least, are we required to have someone,
A hybrid.
yeah, hybrid meeting? We need to have,
Required to have the option for in-person
I
meeting.
think we can.
thank you.
Right now it's encouraged, but not required.
Still have the option.
Oh, good.
So we can have a,
We could post it as a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, let's plan for that, Amy.
okay.
So
July
July 5th would be a Zoom?
Yeah.
Zoom.
Yeah, because I would be out of town as well.
That'd be great.
If you do receive a request from somebody who wants to speak, who cannot physically be there, there is a requirement to make accommodations for that person. So that would be kind of the caveat there.
Okay. All right, good point.
I did have, I texted Zed to find out, what was going on. Due to timing, he did not get 3 quotes, but he will go try and get 3 quotes.
Okay,
I asked him to get me at least an idea of what the price was, so he got the one that was recommended. And so he will go get the 2
The only
others.
reason why I do that, especially with HVAC, there are multiple solutions.
Yeah,
And different companies don't bring up some of them because they don't handle that device or that item. So it would be good to get 1 or 2 more people. to look at it.
I did tell him I like the option of having a backup, it being tied into the rest of the system. So that at least there was some, if one unit, either unit went down, at least there was some kind of some redundancy. So, but he's gonna he'll get through.
And then just fire me off a copy so you get them all. I respond fairly quickly to that.
Okay, so, Amy, let's make our Zoom meeting on the 5th, focused on, specifically board activities, right? So things that we have to take care of, and save. Right, so consent agenda, right?
So maybe I'll read the items I have and you can tell me if you want them on the 5th or the 19th.
You bet.
Okay, so the, other than consent agenda, that will be standard. I have an update from the subcommittee on administrative activities not covered on the ILA.
Yeah, I think we'll push that one out to the 19th.
And we'll meet chief on that.
Okay. I have an update on the ask for data collection on property exempt from King County.
That'll be resolved
That'll
or
be,
By
not.
Yeah,
so that might just be an
Before then.
update in your.
Yeah.
fire.
I can update that in my activity.
perfect,
report.
yeah.
Okay. Server room AC HVAC.
I think that's probably pretty important.
Keep that
It's
on.
important to get that going
Yeah.
if I have the quotes in time.
Okay, and then policy 1410 approval.
That will just be a vote, so that should be, well, let's vote on that on the 19th while we're here in person. It's easier to manage that.
So the only item other than consent will be the server room HVAC.
And I'll advise you if I've got I should over the next couple of weeks be able to get that
And I can,
theoretically.
once I have them, I get back with you and I can actually send out
That'd be great.
to the board secretary, I can send out my feelings on it.
Okay, without objection, we're at the end of our agenda. We'll adjourn.
I do want to comment that we usually have bottled water here. We still have